This portion of the John Fredericks Show is brought to you by Hargrave Military Academy. Attend an educational and informative open house event at Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia. For more information, visit online at hargrave.edu. Hargrave Military Academy. Build his future.
We would not be able to complete our day and talking about the Syrian situation without having on one of the key members in the United States House of Representatives that sits on the Committee on Foreign Affairs. He's the vice chairman, Subcommittee on Europe, Eurasia, and Emerging Threats, and also sits on the Subcommittee on Africa, Global Health, Global Human Rights, and International Organizations. He's also on the Committee of Homeland Security. This guy's on everything. Cybersecurity. I mean, if it's the security of foreign affairs, you got one guy, Representative Tom Marino, Republican from the 10th District of Pennsylvania. That's the Wilkes-Barre area. Congressman, pleasure to have you on, sir.
Good to be on, and please call me Tom.
Okay, Tom. You're becoming a regular on our show because you're just a wealth of insight and information. President Obama, decided to go to Congress to get authorization for to get involved in the Syrian conflict. One of our congressmen from Virginia Beach, Scott Ridgel, was one of the original people calling for that. Now he has it. Now, some people were saying, well, it's like the dog that caught the car. But the reality of it is, Tom, I mean, this is serious stuff. And my question is, I don't know what the objective is.
Well, obviously, yesterday during the testimony of the secretaries Hagel and Kerry, they didn't know what the objective is because there is no objective. I have respect for these gentlemen, but they are there at the behest of the president, and if you take them off script, they're lost. And that's just what I did to them yesterday and my colleagues did because they couldn't answer questions that weren't encapsulated in their script.
I didn't have time, but we have a clip that I'm going to play after you're off between, I think it was a congressman from South Carolina, Duncan, got into it with Kerry. Can you relate for our listeners some of your key exchanges during yesterday's subcommittee hearing? Well,
first of all, we have to realize that this is a Syrian civil war. It's a civil war within that country, and it's their civil war. It's their problem. But I went right to the questions. I really don't get out there and make a speech.
Right.
And I asked Hagel, who are the bad guys? I'll make it easier for you. Tell us who the good guys are, who are our allies. And he couldn't do that. And I gave him two opportunities, and he said there's separate factions, and there are good guys and there are bad guys. Okay, tell me who the good guys are. And then I directly said, do you trust any of these people? And he said, well, trust is, it's a factor that we have to consider. And I said, it's a real easy concept. Do you trust these people? And he couldn't and wouldn't answer the question, which told me that he doesn't know who they are and he doesn't know who they can trust. And then I switched over to Kerry, and I asked the secretary, why you're trying to prove a principle here, and even if you go in and make a strike concerning the chemical weapons, it's not going to stop the murdering, it's not going to stop the butchering, it's not going to get rid of the regime. And he acknowledged that. So I said, where's the clear and present danger to the United States? What is the outcome of this? And again, they went back to script. I pulled them back in, and I said, you're not answering the question because you cannot answer the question. Mm-hmm. I asked how much this is going to cost. And Secretary Hagel fumbled with that and said, well, it's going to cost, tens of millions of dollars. Well, each of these, say they're going to fire these special rockets in there, mm-hmm. Each rocket costs well over $1 million. So what are they going to do? Shoot 10 or 20 rockets in and then walk away? Mm-hmm. It's just that there's no sense here at all. There's no interest on the part of the United States. And we have to make sure that we know on the Foreign Affairs Committee and many other committees realize that the jihadists are involved here, the Muslim Brotherhood's involved here, but you don't hear it coming from this administration.
One of the most troubling, I think, processes that I've ever witnessed, and I've been covering this stuff, Congressman, for a very long time, where basically the administration, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State can outline for their case for involvement what U.S. strategic interests are at stake. And so my question is this, and I'm going to ask you the same one because I ask it to everybody that comes on. How is the United States worse off if we don't do anything?
We're not. Again, this goes back to a principle, and you know that old saying. Sometimes you lose sight of what the reality is and what the common sense approach is because you want to prove a principle. And there have been many guys who have gone down trying to prove a principle and just ignoring the basic common sense facts. And look, I will go to war myself, and my son will go to war to defend this country, to defend the United States. But there is no clear and present danger here, and the president got himself into a jam well over a year ago prior to the campaign. Mm-hmm. He talks a good game, and he gets his mouth going, and I think it's ahead of his brain, and he talks about throwing one-liners out there like the red line. Mm-hmm. Well, now he's backtracking, saying that, well, the red line, I didn't draw the red line, the America did or the world did. And, again, he's trying to save political face, and he's just, we cannot get into this. I don't want to see one more American come home from the Middle East deformed or in a body bag. Right. It's not worth it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, these are the questions that we got to keep asking to get at the answers, and answers are getting hard to come by. Congressman, question on Syria, and I have asked this to many of my callers who have come in. Does anybody feel threatened by Syria? I mean, is there a national threat to the United States here? No,
there's no national threat. I mean, just think about this for a moment. We have Assad over there who's a brutal dictator. He can only exercise his ego on his brutally on his own people.
Right.
And this is a no-brainer. There's no way that he can launch any attack on the United States. There's been issues saying, well, what's he going to do to Israel? And I have been in constant contact with my friends and my contacts in Israel, both on this side of the ocean and across the ocean. And the Israelis have made it quite clear. First of all, I want to wish my Israeli friends Rosh Hashanah, a New Year celebration. Mm-hmm. And Kerry brought out a comment where he said inaction would embolden Iran. Well, Iran is certainly the evil axis here, but again, we're talking about a civil war within Syria, and Israel can protect itself. As a matter of fact, the Times of Israel has quoted an unnamed senior official who says, "We don't need America to take care of threats to Israel. We can handle it ourselves." And they're right on there. So now this is just another political move, unfortunately, by this administration, because the president got out there and got his mouth into gear before he thought about what he was saying.
So what you're saying is a lot of this, in your view, is just to protect this president's credibility internationally?
Well, sure, because look, he didn't hesitate to go into Libya without congressional consent. So now he's got to cover his backside and saying, well, I'm going to go ask Congress, even though I don't have to, because if Congress says no, he's going to stand up to the world and say, I wanted to do this, but I couldn't. Congress stopped me. He'll show pictures of innocent people being killed. But again, it's nothing more than a political move on his part.
So essentially, what you're saying is it kind of might put the president in a better political position, because if Congress does indeed stop it, then he can blame the other guy, and if they don't, then he can say, "Well, I did what I had to do." But one of the questions that I think everybody has is, all right, so and you brought it up earlier. So we shoot in 10, 12 missiles at a couple $1 million each. okay, we can't really afford that anyway. Now, those missiles are going to blow up, so people die. I mean, that's the objective of shooting out missiles. I mean, somebody's going to die. So I guess killing those people isn't as bad as what Assad did. But then my other question is, you look at John Kerry up there, and I try to give these people the benefit of the doubt. But, you got to ask this question, Representative Marino. This is the same John Kerry when Saddam Hussein gassed the Kurds, did nothing, said nothing, could care less.
Well,
I don't
know
get
if
it.
you were watching yesterday, but I questioned him on that. I brought up the fact that, well, in 2002, you said that that we have to exhaust all options, every single option, before we intervene militarily. And then he went on to say, well, that was a different situation, and anyhow, we got Saddam. And I said, it's real easy to Monday morning quarterback. You were clearly against it when you were running for president, and now you and the president are hell-bent on going in there, and just purely for political reasons. And the bottom line is two things that are important to me. Number one, who is going to pay for this? The American taxpayers are going to pay for it. The middle-class American taxpayers are going to get stuck paying for this, and we're going to have to borrow money to do it, and we have too many problems here to get involved in somebody else's civil war. And number two, I reiterate the fact that I'm not going to tolerate an American coming home in a body bag anymore for inept causes over in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, and I've said on the air, many times. I go back to the Iraq thing. I was a neoconservative. I'm reformed. I was beating the drums. I thought it was the right thing to do. I bought into all the rhetoric, let freedom ring, the whole thing. Colin Powell, UN. I was there. I was backing all of it. I was on the air. I was a cheerleader, so to speak, and I was absolutely wrong. I mean, the whole thing turned out to be a catastrophe. And, there's an old saying, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me three times, I'm just an idiot. I think that's kind of where we are right now.
Well, we've all learned that lesson sometime in our lives, but what puzzled me, most deeply puzzled me, is neither the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense could acknowledge who our allies are and where they are. We do not know. So it's just like in Libya, this administration came out and had praises for the Muslim Brotherhood, but any student of political science realizes that the Muslim Brotherhood, a branch of Al-Qaeda, is a patient group that will take its time. They'll make the bombs and have somebody else lob them. They will work their way into the government to get elected to seats and eventually try and have control. And they are a very, very dangerous group. But again, you didn't hear that come out of any of the secretaries' mouths yesterday.
No, it's kind of amazing. And, you look at these two gentlemen, Chuck Hagel, who was, when he was in the U.S. Senate, not by any means known as a hawk. I mean, he questioned every involvement that we have, even though he did vote on its behalf sometime. And, of course, now we're having John Kerry redux. He was against it before he was for it or something. That kind of reminds me of the 2004 campaign. Final question, Representative Marino. We're almost out of time. Any way this can get stopped in the House?
I'm not sure that there are enough votes to pass this resolution.
Really?
And more and more of my colleagues my colleagues were texting me yesterday and emailing me, and more of them are saying no. But one other point here, John, that we have to bring out is Kerry wasn't straight with us on boots on the ground. The Senate resolution talks about combat troops. Now that tells us that they're going to eventually say we need supervisors, we need police, we need Marines, we need the CIA over there. If this happens, which I'll do everything I can to prevent it through my vote, there will be dead Americans.
That's your prediction?
Yes.
If this goes through, eventually we're going to have to send troops in there.
I will be totally against sending troops in there. But I'm saying, even if to minimize this, to saying we're going to address the issue of sending missiles over, you need some type of boot on the ground personnel, and the Senate is very coy about this. They are talking about combat troops. We can have people over there that aren't combat troops, but they're still Americans, and I oppose that also. There should be no American over there, regardless of what position he or she is, whether it's military, whether it's civilian, or whether it's one of the covert operations. And it's going to happen if this resolution passes.
We're out of time, Congressman, but I just got to follow up with this one final question. If indeed that plays out, then my question is, and the House votes it down, now we understand some people in the administration saying, well, that President Obama might go ahead with it anyway. So then the whole thing would have been a charade. Then what?
Well, then that's going to show where this president really stands and how politics get into the way of this. You tell one lie and you have to tell another lie to cover that up, and you have to tell another lie to cover that up. So no matter what the situation ends up, I think the American people are going to realize what the president's trying to do here and where he's coming from, and his credibility is going to drop like a lead balloon. Okay,
Congressman Tom Marino, we're out of time. We want to thank you for being with us today, and as always, we thank you for your candor. Representative Tom Marino, Republican from the 10th District of Pennsylvania, sits on the Committee of Foreign Affairs. Congressman, thanks. We'll have you back.